Hello everybody, it's me again, and I'm going to start another video. This video will be different than the previous ones. There's no programming here. We're mainly going to focus on Xcode, the tool that we will be using to develop apps, the features, and how to customize it. All right. So let's take a look at this tool. Okay, first, let's start looking at the create a new Xcode project. Now we've used this before, so click on this. You can create project from what you just saw, or you can create a project from here. You can do file, new, and then you can select project. All right. Now, what are the different type of projects that you have? All right. There are new things in Xcode 8. Before, we used to have single view, game, master detail, page base, and then tab. There are a couple more new here, and we'll talk about all of these in a minute. What is a single app? Is a single app, and most of the time, we'll start with this. A single app is like an app that has one screen only, all right? And it has what we call, it's configured to have everything that you need to play around with an app, okay? A game, as the name suggests, that you actually have, you can create games, and these are templates, and these games allow you to do what? They allow you to actually develop a game, and it has all the code to get started, okay, with developing a game. You have the master detail. This is like if you're using iPhone, you have like a phone, like let's say contact list. You click on the contact, it gives you details about that contact. So this is kind of like, it's called master detail. A page base is like you are reading a book. You're just swapping from one to another page, one from another page, and it flips like a page, okay? The last one here, not the last one, well, this is what you used to have. We have the tab app. The tab app is again, I'll use the phone book for the phone app on your iPhones. If you notice at the bottom of your phone app, you have, for example, let's say you have your favorite, recent, contact at the bottom, right? And these, you can click on each one of these tabs. It'll give you a different screen and a different, usually they're not related, okay? Now this one these are new and they're fun. The first one is Sticker Pack, which is, it's not really an app. I mean, there's no programming. You can download it. It's like an extension to your keyboard, which means that you can actually design your own icons, you know, the ones that the image on, the one that you sent in the messages, like the smiley face, the sad face, and things like. If you're good in drawing and you want to publish, you want to create your own, so you can create them, you can draw them, include them into this app, and then publish it, and people can download it, all right, and then they can use it. Same thing here with the messages. This is a message app. You're actually using the messages app that exists in iPhone, and then you can add to it extensions. Okay, these two are great tools in extending the functionality of your keyboard and messages. Okay, what about these? So this is what we will be focusing on. This is the iOS. You have, of course, the Apple Watch, and if you want to create apps, you can just use this one. You have the TV OS, which is Apple TV, all right? So you can create your own apps for Apple TV. You have the Mac OS. This is the computer that you're using. And the cross-platform is games, basically, that you can run on different devices. Now, if you notice, this tool, Xcode, can develop apps, applications, whatever you want to call it, for all Apple products. So that's all you have to learn. You know, Xcode, iOS, Xcode, and Swift, and then you're done. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at this iOS, and then we're going to select a single view app. All right, and I'm going to call it my first app. When we click on, now here, these are important here. Let me explain to you what this means. Theme is that you are, if you want to be able to publish your app, you need to sign up for a developer account. If you don't want to, if you don't need to develop, if you don't need to publish your app, you just want to test it. You have, all you have to do is create a regular Apple ID or iCloud ID, and then you can use it. Okay, I'll explain this in a minute. So you can select the team that you want to develop. Now the organization, and you can give it any organization you want. Okay, you can make it XYZ. Of course, XYZ does. I'm sure it exists somewhere, so it'll be a problem. Okay. Whatever, it was HCT, we'll leave it as HCT. Then you have your organization identifier, and this and this, these are critical. And the reason they are critical, because that is what identify the name of the app, and this identifier identifies your app on the App Store. That way it's unique. And of course, there are millions and millions of apps. You don't want to be confused with somebody else's app. So this is what make your app unique, this one and that one. This is the bundle identifier, this one, and then your app name. Now, if it already exists, you've named it before, then it'll tell you that this name is reserved. You already have a name like that. Okay, so you need to be careful on how you name your apps and then your organization name. The language is, you have two options, Swift and Objective-C. The difference between them is that Objective-C is the old language we used to program apps with. Okay, recently, of course, Apple made a big change and then came up with a language called Swift. And Swift is a lot easier than Objective-C, because this, just the syntax we talk about is huge. Okay, there is a big learning curve of Objective-C. Does it exist? Of course it exists. There are many apps that are still written in Objective-C because Objective-C is mature, but it was harder to program. Then you have the device. Where do you want to run it on? You can do universal, iPhone and iPad. For now, we're going to use iPhone. The difference between these two, of course, the screen size and the capabilities of the device. Now, the universal means that it would run on both devices. Okay, but for simplicity, we'll use iPhone. This, use core data. If you want to store any information on the device locally, then we will use core data. Right now, we're not going to do that. Then we're going to click on next. Where are you going to store it? I'm going to store it in here. Now we click on create. And here is my app. All right. Now, if you look, let's take a look at what we have in here. Okay, I'm going to move this here somewhere so you can see it. Let's see, what do we have in here? First of all, this is your app project. All right. And it has characteristics. It has configuration, if you will. There's a lot. We're not going to look at that, but we're not going to look at this because we'll be spending a lot of time doing this. This is where you change the settings of your device, your app. One of them, for example, under capabilities, are you going to use location? Are you going to use the iCloud? Are you going to use push notification? Here's maps. So you can enable things in your app. So once you install your app, it'll check, do you have capabilities to use this or not? So you need to, based on what you're doing with your app, you need to set the proper capability. All right. So this tab, it shows you this is your target. It shows you what can you do, or what special things you need in your app. in order to run properly. All right, so this is the project properties. On the left-hand side, okay, this is your project code. This is what exists in your project. Okay, this is the code. These are for testing purposes. Okay, and this is the product. Okay, and then notice they're red, but once you publish them, these things become green. Okay, let's talk about this part. There are two types of files that comes in with this app. One of them is called something.swift, and then here, storyboard. And then you have the assets where we keep the images. So this and this are your code. Anything that ends with .swift, that means it's code, okay, it's programming. Things like this, storyboard, is where you design your app. Xcode uses things called a model view controller, and the model view controller works in a way that the design of your app works separately than your programming, okay? And so the code usually is separated from your storyboard, okay? We'll talk about this in a minute, okay? So the Swift are for programming, storyboards are for designing the screens and the layouts. The assets is that where you keep actually images about your images that you want to use in your app. For one thing is that when you publish your app, you need icons. So you can, in here, you can drag and drop your icons. If you're using background images, you're using media, images, you're moving, whatever images you want, you can put them all in this assets part of your project. There's one more thing called, here so you have a storyboard. This is your main storyboard, that means your application. You have something called launch storyboard. The launch storyboard is that where you, when you first launch your application, this is the screen that will appear. Okay, again, I'm just explaining, this is just an overview. We will get to it in more details once we start playing with these, okay? All right. Now, once we get to the app, I'll explain all these parts, but let's continue. What else do you have in here? So these are the components of your project, okay? What else do we have in here, okay? We have, if we go back to this, for example, we have different panels on your screen. For example, if you want to, right now, I'm showing this and this, and right now, it's all one screen, right? This is called your toolbar, okay? So the way you show it, you can say hide toolbar or show toolbar, okay? You can have show tab bar. We'll talk about this in a minute. The toolbar is important because it makes things easier, all right? What I just did here, for example, when I click on this, it shows you things that tools are useful for your app, okay? One of the things, because we are using, we're not using user interface here, we have the identity inspector, for example, give you information about that file, give you what, you know, what's your target, where are you gonna run it, okay? It'll give you documentation. So if you select something here, for example, it will give you documentation about, quick documentation about what you're working with, all right? But notice when I select, now I'm gonna show you the project against project components. If I click storyboard, this changes, okay? Now you're dealing with different things, okay? We used to have these two, identity inspector, not identity and type. We have documentation. And now here we have other things, okay? For example, we have things related to the object you select on the screen. So it says, okay, there's a class. Again, we'll talk about this class in a minute and later on. And this is related to this view controller, okay? So you have things other than this. For example, if you click in here, you have properties, like if you want to change the color, the background, the size, all of this will be under, not the size, sorry, it will be under properties, okay? Properties are things that you can change related to a particular object, okay? Then you have the ruler, where it's, you know, again, here's where you can change the size of a particular thing, all right? Then you have actions, okay? For example, if I drag something from here, I'll show you. If we drag a button here, for example, now I can do things with this, where when you click on it, do something. When you enter the area of that button, then you can do something else. So you have different action related to that. Again, if you go back, here's the size. You can change the size of that button, okay? Here you can do, again, the property. You can change the text. For example, you can say, click me, and now it changes the text, okay? So this is, again, these are properties. What else do we have here? That is usually related to changing the look and the behavior of something on the screen, all right? And here you have a list of objects that you can use in your app, okay? And these are very, very, very useful. In the past, all programmers used to do this manually, but now Xcode Storyboard has a really great set of tools that you can use. And if they're not showing, here's a snippet of codes that you can add into your Swift programs. But the one that you're interested in is this one with object list, okay? Object library. And you have many, many things. You have things related to screens, different type of screens, anything that ends with the controller, okay? Usually it's a screen. You have what we call this would be very, this is view controller is very, very, very common. So you use that a lot, okay? And then you have things that goes into these screens, which is like labels, buttons, segmented control. Like a segment control is like a swap, okay? And then you have text fields to enter data, and you have sliders to change values without entering data. So people can select values. And you have a switch like on and off. You have activity to show you the progress. You know, activity is like running, and then when it's finished, it stops and disappears. You have progress view, to show how far you're progressing in your app. So there's a lot. These, in the beginning, we will be using a lot of these, okay? There's a lot. And as we go on, we'll use the ones that I'll expose to you to the ones that we need to use in our application, okay? So that is the object list or object library, all right? All right, in here, if you notice, you have play and then you have stop. The play is actually when you run your application, it runs a simulator, and then that simulator you don't need to download. It's already built in Xcode, and it's a very, very good tool to test your app and see how it works. Okay, we haven't done anything, so what we're going to get the launch screen is the first thing that appears. It's going to be blank, and then after like, you know, fractions of seconds, it will take me to the application. Now that button is not, you're not seeing it because here, so it shows up. So what you saw is that you saw first the launch screen, and then it took me to this, but it doesn't do you any good right now. So this is the simulator. We will have a special lesson, a video on simulator, okay? And so to stop it, you can just click on the stop, okay? In here, you can select the different device you want to test it on. If you're connected to a device, then you can select the device you want it to run it on. Otherwise, you can select any of these devices, and what you get the simulator that mimics the look and the feel, not the feel, the look of and the functionality of that device. Okay, so iPhone 5 obviously smaller, iPhone 6 is bigger, and so forth. And iPad is different. So this is a great tool to check how your application is going to look like before you publish it. Okay, so that is your simulator. All right. Okay. Okay, I know this video has been long, but I think this is essential to get started. The last thing I'm going to show you here, this thing under Xcode, we have preferences. All right. This preferences is two things of important to you. Of course, there's more, but here is one of them. I want to show you. This is your Apple ID. This is where you add your Apple ID, and here's where you add. This is your where you add. You change the look of your Xcode, so you can have different themes, and then you can. It depends on your preference. How do you want it to look like? And you can select the different text, if you will. If you want to select them all, you can select them all, and then change the font if you want, the color, and all of that stuff. Okay. So the one that I'm using is the basic. So that's the one that you saw. Okay. So this one and this one are important in your preferences. Okay. This one you can add accounts like your Apple ID or iCloud account, so you can test your application. All right. All right, there are more in here, but this is, again, and we'll be spending hours and hours to do this stuff, so we'll just focus on the things that are important to you, all right? And let's see if there is anything else. All right, here. In this part here, these are important, again. This part here where we talk about the, this is the toolbar again. This is called show the code, all right? If you notice here, if you put the mouse on top, show the standard editor, right? Next to it, this is quite important, is code assist, all right? What is a code assist? Code assist is that, I remember when I said that the screens are separate from the controller. So what happens is that the code, the screens are separate from the code. So every screen controller, we call it, is usually tied to a program, a Swift class. So what happened, this one is actually tied to a Swift class. In the identity inspector here, you see a view controller, and that is the class is related to it. So once you click on this code assist, it will show you the screen and the code that lies behind it, okay? So right now, we haven't done anything with it, but in the next video, I'll show you how we do this functionality, okay? So these two are quite important, okay? This code assist and this standard code. And then, of course, you have these different panels. The last one I didn't show you here, which is the output. This is where you can test, and then you can use debugger to test and see messages that you print out, just like we did with the playground. When we did the print, you can do it in here. It shows it in the bottom of your screen. You have different views. You have only the output, and then you have the output. You have the output and the breakpoints, okay? The debugger watch points, okay? That is it. I know this has been a long video, and I hope you found it not too boring, but this is very, very important to establish some basic background, so when we move on, things will be easier. Even if you don't remember it, but at least you have, you've seen it before, and then hopefully you will remember it easier next time. All right, this is it, and I'll see you on the next video. And the next video will be actually creating an app, and then indulge more into explaining these different components of Xcode. I'll see you in the next video. Hope you have a good day.